Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, I'm going to be showing you an exciting new item card coming in the Burning Shadows Pokemon trading card game expansion, coming this August. It is Rotom-Dex Poker Finder mode. Now, we've already had a Rotom-Dex card in Pokemon Sun and Moon, the initial expansion, and in the video game, the Rotom-Dex can do several different things. It has several different forms, and it looks like the trading card game is going to follow suit, ladies and gentlemen. Hence why we are getting the Poker Finder mode in this set. What is really cool, of course, is if you look closely at the art on the card, the trading card game art has a screenshot of the video game hidden in amongst it, which is pretty gosh darn cool. But of course the most important question is, what does it actually do? Well, it reads, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put them on top of your deck in any order, or shuffle them back into your deck. Now, if it does translate like this, and as I always say, we will need an official translation from Japan, but assuming it does translate like this, it's one or the other. So you can't leave 2 on top and shuffle the other 2 back in, or I suppose you would have to shuffle them in and leave 2 on top. It's either you rearrange or you shuffle them back in. And the card that this made me think of straight away, and this is a fairly old card, so newer players might not remember it, Research Record. This is really quite cool. This was a card that came around in the Heart Gold Soul Silver era. It actually came around in the Call of Legend set, one of the very few good cards from that set, along with this Pachirisu. There we go. And it allowed you to look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put as many of them as you like back on top of your deck in any order, and put the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. That meant that you could really separate them out, so you could leave 1 or 2 on top of your deck and put the rest underneath. This is slightly different, but it performs a very similar role. And what I really like about this is that either you can make sure you're going to have the right card on top, or you can shuffle your deck. Because the other card that comes to mind here is Gallade, which of course is often used in expanded decks, along with Archie's Ace in the Hole. And the thing that really annoys me about Gallade's Premonition, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and rearrange them and put them in any order that you like. Or indeed, like playing a single copy of Puzzle of Time, which allows you to rearrange the top 3 cards of your deck. Well, what if the top 3 cards of your deck all suck? Like, fully 90% of the time I've played a single Puzzle of Time, I've left them in the same order. There is nothing more depressing than having a handful of unplayable cards, looking at the top 3 cards of your deck and going, well, they all suck. It's rubbish. That's where this comes in, ladies and gentlemen, because here you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and if you've got cards that you like, you go, woo! And off you go. And if you've got cards that you don't, you shuffle in. And maybe you get a rubbish card on your deck afterward. That's fine. But at least you've had the chance. The other thing, of course, it allowed you to do is look at future turns. So if you know that you're going to be drawing 1 good card and then 3 bad cards, then maybe you play an N so that you get to reshuffle your deck. Or maybe you know you're going to draw a double colourless energy the next turn, so you can go with that Tauros or whatever. It gives you information. Information is valuable. But it also really helps where you need to hit a specific card. So Whiscash, for instance, was a card that came out in Guardians Rising. I've done a video of it. There will be a link to that in the description. And the thing about Whiscash is that it's a really, really good card under very specific circumstances. It allows you to discard the top 3 cards of your deck, and you do 100 damage for each energy card that you discard in this way. Well, if you go and play this Rotom-Dex Poker Finder, then that means you know for certain how much damage you're going to be doing. And if you really want to play a Whiscash deck, this is a really, really good card for it, because you know if you're going to do enough damage, and if you're not going to do enough damage, then you can make sure that you leave it. But it's not just about doing the damage, it's about discarding the cards. Whiscash, as you can see, is a Pokemon that really takes advantage of double colourless energy. Now, it does the attack say energy card, So discarding the double colourless energy will allow you to do 100 damage. But sometimes you really don't want to be discarding all of your double colourless energy. Or maybe you go to use Landslip and all of a sudden all 3 of your Versus Seeker are going to be discarded. Or you're going to discard your final Whiscash and both of your Rescue Stretcher. And that's really, really bad because you're not going to have those Whiscash to use in future turns. So sometimes an attack like this, Landslip, can literally lose you the game by discarding cards you're not comfortable discarding. Rotom-Dex Pokefinder mode, unlike Ether Paradise Conservation Area, it's got too long a name and I'd like it changed, can help you to really mitigate this. Want a more extreme version of Whiscash? And this is a card that, oh my goodness, I have had a lot of requests for a deck profile. The honest answer is I don't usually have time. With the amount of cards coming out and decks, it's hard to find the time. But Typhlosion's getting another mention here. And Typhlosion, at least for the meantime, is a better option than Whiscash because of the single energy requirement. Discard the top 5 cards of your deck, 80 damage times the number of energy cards you discard it. Now, bearing in mind that Typhlosion can now take advantage of Choice Band, this means that for 2 energy discarded, you're doing 190 damage. And this Rotom means that you know. Although you don't quite know with Typhlosion, because of course Rotom-Dex lets you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and Typhlosion lets you discard the top 5. So there is still that single unknown card there. What is interesting, of course, is if you're playing something like Whiscash or Typhlosion, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, you're not doing enough damage, so you shuffle in, and then it's completely blind. Of course, theoretically, you could play 4 Rotom-Dex Pokefinder mode in a single turn, and just keep going until you get the energy you want to get that crucial KO. Is it clunky? Oh my goodness, yes. And Whiscash takes 4 energy, and Typhlosion's a stage 2, but let's ignore all of that. If you really want to play those cards, and I've had a lot of messages from people that do, this is a cool option. The other really good option here is to use it with Max Elixir. Max Elixir, if you've got an energy in the top 6 cards of your deck, you can attach it, a basic energy, to one of your benched basic Pokémon. Here's the problem though. You're only looking at 4 cards and Max Elixir looks at 6, so you could not find it with Rotom-Dex Pokefinder mode, but it could be the 5th or 6th card. But also, if you're playing about 12 basic energy, you should, according to the maths, hit 3 of your 4 Max Elixir in an average game. So is it worth playing 2, 3, 4 Rotom-Dex Pokefinder mode, in addition to your 4 Max Elixir, just to try and hit the 4th one? You're already hitting 3 out of 4. Do you really need to play a whole bunch of extra cards just to try and hit the 4th? I don't think you do, ladies and gentlemen. Although, just as a side note, there is a really fun use for this in the expanded format. You can play the card Ether, which you look at the top card of your deck. If it's a basic, attach it to one of your Pokemon. This could combine really nicely with Rotom-Dex Pokefinder mode. But of course, then you're playing 4 Ether and 4 Pokefinder, and it's a little bit awkward. But let's ignore that, because it's a fun little thing that you can try. The other thing I've got to mention with Rotom-Dex Pokefinder mode, which needs a shorter name, is that this is really, really useful if you're playing cards like Unknown or Alolan Sandslash. This could be really funky in terms of allowing you to put a card you want on top of your deck and then immediately draw into it. Or, for instance, if you're playing something like Volcanion, you can actually combo this really nicely with Acrobike, put a Supporter as the top card and Energy as the second card, play the Acrobike, draw the Supporter, discard the Energy, and then attach the Energy with Baby Volcanion. Hey, Nick. Now, of course, if you rearrange the cards on top of your deck and then pass to the next turn, your opponent can always play something like an N to make you shuffle your deck and ruin the plans that you've made. Kind of like when you use an Aero Blitz and your opponent plays an N, except they're disrupting your deck order rather than your hand. But the biggest issue we've got with Rotom-Dex Pokefinder mode at the moment is that we've got a lot of really good cards right now. and we're struggling to fit them all into our decks. And if you're going to be playing this card, then maybe you have to cut a Field Blower from your deck, or a Rescue Stretcher, or a card that does something more. I suppose it comes down to the question, does Rotom-Dex Poke Finder mode do something that the other cards don't? And I'm not sure that it does. Plus, of course, at the moment, we're really trying to avoid playing items because of Garbodor. But it's extra consistency. And really, Rotom-Dex Poke Finder mode comes down as a classic free Wossie card. You want some of these in your binder because you might play it in the future, and as I've said on a number of occasions, we don't know much about the Wossie scale. But the one thing we do know is that a free Wossie card is one you should have a couple copies of your binder, and that's where this fits. Now, you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. There is a comment section. Go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. Use them both, I'll be delighted. Make sure you follow me on Twitter @TheWossie, and the most important thing as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.